Welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. Today, we're getting into addresses, privacy, and double spending considerations. This is a really crucial piece of our network and transactions module, which sits right inside the Introduction to the Bitcoin White Paper course, part of the wider Bitcoin Fundamentals track. You know, when most people think of Bitcoin, they picture this perfectly anonymous, super secret, ninja-like system. But the reality? Well, it's a bit more like walking through a freshly mopped room wearing bright orange boots. Every single transaction you make is drawn out in permanent ink on a completely public blueprint. So today, we're going to explore exactly what happens when your daily privacy habits collide with the mechanics of the network.
So, if you caught our last explainer on the transaction flow and processing model, you might remember how we mapped out exactly how nodes validate transactions. They check inputs against the mempool, they make sure all the rules are followed, the whole shebang. But today we're putting on our digital detective hats. Because while validation is great for enforcing the rules, it doesn't do a single thing to actually hide your behavior.
Here's our blueprint for today. We're going to look at the illusion of privacy, track some digital footprints, dive into the double spend danger, compare the risks, and finally, prep for consensus. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. The illusion of privacy, or as I like to call it, the glass safe.
Let's just shatter that whole total anonymity myth right out of the gate, okay? A public ledger is literally a glass safe. Yes, it's highly secure. The cryptographic locks protecting your assets are rock solid. But the walls, they are completely transparent to anyone walking by. And because of that, one of the most common and honestly terrible habits people have is address reuse. That's the practice of receiving multiple payments to the exact same destination address. Mechanically speaking, it's like stamping your home address on every single dollar bill you ever hand out. Eventually, anyone watching the cash flow knows exactly who you are and exactly what you're buying. The choices you make here really matter. On one side, single address reuse basically draws these massive bright neon arrows pointing right to your identity, making it trivial to link all your receipts together. But if you generate a fresh address for every single transaction, a new address per receive, you break that simple aggregation. You force the digital detectives to actually work for a living instead of just handing them your entire life story on a silver platter.
Moving to Section 2. Tracking digital footprints, also known as the Detective's Toolkit.
So here's the real million-dollar question. How do multiple inputs actually reveal who you are? I mean, think about it. If you get 5 payments sent to 5 different addresses on 5 different days, how on earth does a passive observer figure out that they all belong to you?
The answer is a little something called the common input heuristic. It sounds technical, but it's really just a powerful clustering signal. It's the core assumption that if multiple inputs are spent together in a single transaction, they must be controlled by the exact same person. Let's ground this in a simple physical analogy. Imagine you're watching someone walk up to a heavy vault door. The door has 2 completely separate locks. The person pulls out their keychain, picks 2 completely different keys, and unlocks both locks at the exact same time to open the door. Even though the keys look totally different, because they are on the same keychain and used by the same person at the same time, it is blatantly obvious that one person owns both keys. In Bitcoin, spending 2 unspent transaction outputs together requires access to both corresponding private keys.
Let's look at how this plays out numerically. We'll use Alice as an example. Now, Alice is smart. She received 3 distinct payments of 0.1 Bitcoin, and she used 3 completely different addresses to do it. So far, so good, right? Her privacy is intact. But later, Alice wants to make a single purchase of 0.25 Bitcoin. Her wallet, trying to be helpful and save a few bucks on transaction fees, acts a little lazy. It automatically consolidates all 3 of those separate 0.1 Bitcoin inputs into a single transaction to cover the 0.25 Bitcoin cost. Boom. The absolute second she broadcasts that transaction, observers using the common input heuristic instantly link all 3 of those previously private receipts together. Alice's wallet just accidentally doxed her entire transaction history.
And it doesn't stop there. There's another clue just hiding in plain sight: the change address. Just like getting change back from a $20 bill when you buy a coffee, Bitcoin Wallet sends surplus funds back to a change output that you control. But if your wallet is predictable, like maybe it reuses an old receive address for your change, or it always drops the change output in the exact same index slot, observers just found another really easy thread to pull to unravel your privacy. And by the way, diving into advanced operational security and wallet configuration like this, that is exactly the kind of hands-on learning we do over at Forge College.
All right, Section 3, the double spend danger. Let's talk about the heist.
You see, these exposed blueprints and clustered footprints, they don't just hurt your privacy, they practically invite thieves.
The whole setup for this heist relies on a concept called zero-confirmation, or zero-conf. This happens when someone accepts a transaction as valid before a miner has permanently written it into a block. Picture a merchant accepting a quick, unconfirmed payment for a cup of coffee. They see the transaction hit the mempool, they hand over the coffee, and they just blindly assume everything is going to be fine.
So, how exactly does an attacker exploit this? Well, let's look at the timeline of a double spend heist. Step 1. The thief broadcasts the coffee payment to the merchant, but they intentionally attach a very, very low miner fee to it. Step 2. The merchant sees the pending transaction pop up and lets the thief walk out the door with a hot latte. Step 3. Once they're safely outside, the thief broadcasts a second, conflicting transaction. This new transaction spends the exact same coins, but this time it sends the funds right back to the thief's own wallet, and critically, it includes a much higher miner fee. It is the perfect digital dine and dash. I mean, hopefully it was at least a good cup of coffee.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of why this works. Replace by fee, or RBF. You have to remember, miners are economically rational actors. They naturally prefer higher fees. When they look at the mempool and see the thief's second transaction offering a significantly better reward, they are perfectly happy to accept the replacement. That higher fee RBF transaction just easily overwrites the unconfirmed coffee payment. The thief gets the coffee, and they get to keep their Bitcoin. This is exactly why predictable exposed wallets combined with zero-conf policies are a dangerously bad combination.
Section 4. Comparing privacy and risk. Let's lay down some engineering guidelines.
Now that we've identified these vulnerabilities, let's establish some real guidelines by comparing your practices against the risks. If you reuse a single receive address, your privacy impact is extremely high. All your receipts are trivially linked. Plus, your double spend risk is moderate because your incoming funds are very predictable stationary targets for an attacker. Now, if you use a new address per receive, your privacy impact drops significantly, and your risk drops because you aren't presenting that stationary target. And lastly, if you consolidate your UTXOs carelessly, you create these massive clusters of linked history. That makes your clustered balance highly attractive to an attacker, and much easier to try and double spend before confirmation.
So, what should you actually take away from all this? I've got 3 golden engineering rules for you. Number 1, always use new receive addresses for distinct counterparty relationships. Seriously, stop doing the detective's work for them. Number 2, avoid unnecessary UTXO consolidation. Don't go merging unrelated coins just to tidy up your wallet if privacy is a priority for you. And number 3, beware of zero-conf policies. You have to understand that an unconfirmed transaction is nothing more than a promise. And as we've seen, promises can be easily overwritten with a slightly higher fee.
Finally, Section 5, Preparing for Consensus, Closing the Loop.
Everything we just talked about today, the mempool replacements, the zero confirmation vulnerabilities, the double spend heist, these aren't just abstract theories or fun thought experiments. They are the exact real-world reasons why we desperately need a canonical, absolutely unchangeable history. We need a definitive way to finalize blocks so that the window for a double spend is slammed shut completely and permanently. This operational necessity, it's the entire driving force behind Nakamoto consensus.
Which leaves us with a massive foundational question. How can a completely decentralized network with absolutely no central authority actually agree to finalize history and permanently close these double spend windows? Well, that is the exact puzzle we're going to solve in our next explainer. Until then, to keep exploring and leveling up your Web3 knowledge, make sure to head over to forge.college. I'm your host, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.